Welcome to Jewish Wisdom on JTV. We're doing Fireside Chats created in association with Olami. And our first guest is Rabbi Daniel Rowe. Rabbi, how are you doing?
Very nice to be here.
Good to see you. So, first question. Anti-Semitism. The famous topic.
Wouldn't be Jews if we weren't discussing anti-Semitism.
Exactly, right? Some people get the sense that Jews are almost paranoid about anti-Semitism. It makes sense given our history, but some would say today, we've never had it so good. On the other hand, there have been incidents of anti-Semitism. Some people believe it's on the rise. There are issues of Islamism and some say, even in the West, political issues. What do you believe, and perhaps as a rabbi, would you say is the Jewish response to dealing with anti-Semitism?
So the question of are we paranoid? I suppose Jews might be paranoid, but for very good reason. So that says my paranoid self there. I think one of the challenges of anti-Semitism is a very complex phenomenon, or set of phenomena, really. And I think that throughout history, it's kind of been almost ever present. As I think Rabbi Sachs says, it's quite a light sleeper. And at the same time, it morphs. It carries with it typically a veneer of some kind of ethical challenge to what a lot of the Jewish community happened to be doing at that time. So if Jews happen to be moneylenders in certain medieval period, well then there's a lot of hatred to moneylenders, and who wouldn't hate moneylenders who are lending money and then coming back asking for more. But then as Jews move out of the moneylending and let's say Italian banking families take over, we suddenly see that society is not quite as aggressive against moneylenders. Now they might hate people who sit in ghettos and the Jews happen to be sitting in ghettos. Then we're released from ghettos and free and now being able to rise up in society. Oh no, now we hate this new class that's rising in society. Or let's say in a time there was a lot of Christian anti-Semitism because we're blamed for the killing of Jesus. But then as Europe becomes less Christian, so you'd expect anti-Semitism decreases. Well, actually, no, now there's kind of a new nationalism where the Jews are invited to become a citizen, but to the extent to which they sort of are this weird people without a nation state and without a home. We don't like you that way. So, okay, let's go set up a nation state and a home. That was Herzl's response to that. And no, now we hate you because you took somebody's land. There was somebody who once said, all things and the opposite can be reasons for anti-Semitism. Now, it's true that having been through all that, sometimes we might overpoint, or certain members of the community might instinctively overpoint fingers. That's possible. And one needs to be very careful, because it's not that all criticism of Jews is anti-Semitism, or in modern day context, all criticism of the state of Israel is anti-Semitism. Where I think we start to smell a rat, or many people do, is when the type of moral judgment when it comes to Jews or a Jewish state is totally different to the type of moral judgments and values you use when it comes to other people. I'll give you a very simple example. There are people who might say any civilian casualty in a war is an outrage. Never go to war if there might be civilian casualties, even if you're going to get hurt yourself, right? So if Hamas is firing rockets and Israel retaliates and in the course that civilians die, this is an outrageous thing. If those same people were saying right now it's outrageous that America and Britain's been bombing ISIS and killing civilians, and more civilians have died in Raqqa than in Gaza, and in other parts of it between Iraq and Syria. Forget what the Russians are doing, what the Americans and British have done. But if we say, no, look, the cause is broadly good, and at the end of the day, they're doing maximum effort they can to minimize civilian casualties, but ISIS is hiding amongst civilian casualties are tragedies, but avoidable when it comes to Britain and America. When it comes to Israel, we can't, no, suddenly civilian casualties, war crimes, even if you're making an effort not to kill them. That starts to smell of a rat. That starts to suggest, is that really all that's going on? I mean, can you really make that, same analogous situation, radically different moral judgment? And
my question is about how we respond to that.
Well, response is complex. Of course, you've got to try to call it out and defend it on the one hand. Can you really rid the world of anti-Semitism altogether? I don't know if you ever can. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to fight anti-Semitism. I think it's also worth trying to make sure, to the best of our ability, that we are as far beyond criticism as you can be. But I think at the end of the day, combating anti-Semitism is going to require different responses in different places. If anti-Semitism comes with rockets, you're going to need an air force and an intelligence service. If anti-Semitism comes in the form of demonization, you're going to need a robust and confident explanation of what we're doing and pointing out when people seem to have crossed lines.
But do you think there is a long-term solution? Is there a cure? to the sickness.
I think there's many Torah commentaries who actually believe it's endemic to part of the spiritual nature of being in exile. And it's almost a
That sounds quite
mystical
grim.
And well, in other words, where that might empower us is a belief that I think it was Michael Gove, long before he was involved in the Conservative Party, who wrote in the Times. I think he was an editor of the Times at the time, who said many of these ideologies that eventually attack humanity first strike at the Jew. Examples he gave was Nazism, Stalinism, modern jihadism. And I think the point really is so long as there's darkness in the world, at least some element of its tentacles will come and strike at the Jew, sometimes even first. And that puts an even deeper cry of the world is not in a good place, and our job is to bring light into the world. The long-run solution to any darkness is to bring light. In the short term, darkness wins with the forces of evil, and in the long term, good wins. And in the end, the long-term response to any darkness, oppression, racism, or anything is just to bring more and more and more good into the world. In the end, the long-term solution to any evil in the world is just doing good. And we believe very much so at the core of Jewish belief, that in the short term, evil can win and do horrific things. But in the long term, if people try to do good, that good will always be embedded in history, and in the long term, it will win. And
speaking in those beautiful and metaphoric terms, is it just that the light can get rid of the darkness, or can the light convert the darkness? Can we convert anti-Semites to become... Can you convert hateful people to become loving people?
Well, I think it depends how deep the hatred is and how loving you are. But I think a lot of people can change minds and attitudes on things, and that's why we should never give up on people. Some are going to be harder to work on than others.
Right.
To stay up to date with the latest JCV content, if you're on YouTube, click subscribe below the video and the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, click the like button, and under following, click see first.